The house was shrouded in an almost palpable darkness. The silence was only interrupted by the occasional creaks of the wooden floor, as if the house was slowly breathing during the night. Sofia, 17, was lying awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. Since her father had died, she had trouble sleeping. Her mother, who worked the night shift at the hospital, wouldn't be home until dawn, leaving the house under her care. Downstairs, Marco, her 10-year-old brother, was fighting the urge to go to the bathroom. He didn't like getting out of bed at night, but the need one. Carefully, he slipped out from under the covers and descended the stairs, avoiding the steps that creaked. The hallway was cold, and the shadows seemed longer and more threatening. When Marco reached the bottom of the stairs, he saw something that made him stop abruptly. The back door, which led to the yard, was slightly open. That was strange. Sofia always locked all the doors before bed. As he pondered whether to close the door, a familiar silhouette crossed the threshold, stepping into the house. Marco's heart raced. Even in the dim light, he recognized the figure as his father. The man stood there, wearing the same worn coat he used to wear when he went to work. The boy was paralyzed, confused, and terrified. His father had been buried just a month ago, yet here he was, standing in the kitchen. "Dad?" Marco whispered, his voice barely escaping his dry throat. The figure didn't respond, just slowly turned its head towards him, its eyes empty, lifeless, reflecting a faint light from outside. Marco felt a chill run down his spine. That thing wasn't his father. Without thinking, Marco ran back up the stairs, almost tripping over his own panic. He knew he had to warn Sofia. He took the steps two at a time, feeling the terror grow with each step. When he finally reached his sister's room, he found her still awake, with a worried look on her face. "What happened, Marco?" she asked, seeing the desperation on her brother's face. I saw Dad," he stammered, barely able to find the words. "He came in through the back door. He's downstairs." Sofia froze for a moment, her eyes wide. She knew her brother wasn't lying, but the idea of their father, dead and buried, walking through the house was unbearable. Yet, something in Marco's tone made her realize they were in danger. Sofia didn't waste any time. Grabbing Marco by the arm, she closed the bedroom door and began piling up furniture in front of it, creating an improvised barricade. "Stay calm, okay? We won't let anything in here," she whispered, trying to calm both herself and her brother. But the sound of heavy footsteps climbing the stairs echoed through the house, increasing their terror. They could hear the footsteps getting closer, heavy and determined. Marco's breathing was fast and uneven, and Sofia tried to think of a way to escape. "We need to get out of here," she murmured, but the only exit was through the window, which led to a steep and slippery roof. The footsteps stopped right at their door. They could hear deep, cold breathing on the other side, as if something was listening to their every move. Sofia pulled Marco back, trying to keep him away from the door. Then, a loud bang resounded, making the entire room tremble. The thing outside was trying to get in. Sofia swallowed hard, feeling the despair set in. "We have to be quick," she whispered to Marco, grabbing her phone and quickly sending a message to their mother. She knew there wasn't much her mother could do, but she had to try. "We're going out the window," she said, forcing her voice to sound firm. "We need to be quiet." Carefully, Sofia opened the window and helped Marco climb out first. The cold night wind whipped their faces as they crawled across the slanted roof. They heard the bedroom door being smashed open with a loud crash, followed by a heavy silence. Something had entered the room. Something that wasn't human. Sofia held Marco tightly, moving as quickly as she could without slipping. They reached the edge of the roof, and with her heart in her throat, Sofia jumped down to the porch below, with Marco in her arms. They landed with a dull thud, but she didn't stop. Grabbing her brother's hand, Sofia ran to the yard, her bare feet barely touching the ground. They had just reached the gate when they heard the sound of breaking glass from inside the house. The thing, whatever it was after them. Sofia pushed the gate with all her strength, and the two ran down the dark street without looking back. They knew they needed to find somewhere safe, but the shadows seemed to follow them, getting closer and closer. The town cemetery was just a few blocks away, and Sofia made a desperate decision. They could hide there, among the tombstones, until their mother returned from work. As they ran, Marco looked back and screamed, pointing towards the house. Their father's figure was there, on the sidewalk, watching them with those empty eyes. He began to walk towards them, each step faster than the last. They finally reached the cemetery, and Sofia pulled Marco through the rusty iron gates. They hid behind a large tombstone, trying to control their breathing. "He's coming," Marco whispered, his eyes wide with fear. "What are we going to do, Sofia?" Sofia didn't know what to say. She was in a panic but knew she had to stay calm, for Marco were going to stay here, quiet. "He won't find us," she said, though her words sounded more like an attempt to convince herself than her brother. The sound of dragging footsteps echoed in the darkness of the cemetery, getting closer. Suddenly, everything went silent. Sofia held her breath, waiting to hear some sound, anything. But nothing happened. Were they alone? Or was the thing just waiting, lurking in the shadows, ready to pounce when they least expected it? The silence was overwhelming, and the fear began to take over Sofia in an almost paralyzing way. Marco clung to his sister, both of them trembling with fear. "Sofia, I'm scared," he whispered, his voice barely audible. Sofia squeezed his hand, trying to find words of comfort, but her mind was blank. They were alone in a dark cemetery, being hunted by something that shouldn't exist. Time seemed to drag on forever, and the two siblings remained hidden behind the tombstone. Sofia began to wonder if they should run again, but the sound of something heavy hitting the ground, not far from them, made her freeze. Marco gasped softly, and Sofia knew they couldn't move. They were trapped. Then, a faint light began to shine on the horizon. It was dawn, and with it came a sense of safety. The shadowy figure that had been chasing them seemed to retreat, disappearing into the darkness as the first rays of sunlight appeared. Sofia and Marco, exhausted but relieved, emerged from their hiding place. The danger had passed, at least for now. When their mother came home in the morning, she found the two siblings sleeping on the couch, still holding each other. She didn't know what had happened that night, but she could feel that something was wrong. Sofia never told her mother the truth, and Marco, still in shock, avoided talking about what he had seen. But Sofia knew that night had changed everything. Something had come after them, something that didn't belong to this world. And even with the dawn, the fear that it might return at any moment never left her. She knew that, somehow, they were no longer safe anywhere,